The morning sun filtered through the cream-colored curtains of our home in Portland, Oregon, casting a golden glow across the hardwood floors. My husband, Daniel, was already up, sipping coffee at the kitchen counter while flipping through the local paper. I walked in, tying my hair into a messy bun, and leaned on the counter with a smile. "Big day?" I asked, noticing his toolbox by the door. Daniel grinned. "Just the usual. I promised Mark I'd help him fix his fence today. You know how long he's been putting it off." I nodded, admiring the way my husband never hesitated to lend a hand. That was one of the things that made me fall in love with him, his generosity. But that day, my attention wasn't on Mark, our neighbor. Instead, it was on Claire, Mark's younger sister, who had recently moved into town after a rough breakup. She rented a small apartment just 2 blocks away, and though she was independent, she seemed to struggle with daily tasks that needed more than one pair of hands. Later that afternoon, as Daniel returned from helping Mark, I brought up Claire. "You know," I began while handing him a glass of lemonade, "Claire mentioned she's been having trouble fixing the shelves in her living room. They're half installed, and she doesn't trust herself with power tools." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "And you want me to help?" I laughed. "Well, you are the neighborhood handyman. Plus, it would really mean a lot to her. She's been through so much lately." He thought for a moment, then shrugged with a smile. "All right, if it'll help her settle in, I'm in." The next day, we walked over to Claire's place together. Her apartment had that still unpacking vibe, half-filled boxes, rolled-up rugs leaning against the wall, and books stacked in uneven towers. Claire greeted us with a grateful smile, her sandy blonde hair tied in a loose ponytail and a smudge of paint on her cheek. "Thank you so much for coming," she said, ushering us inside. "I didn't want to bother you, but I couldn't figure these shelves out. They looked simple in the store display, but the instructions may as well be written in Greek." Daniel laughed, setting his toolbox down. "Don't worry, I've seen worse." I perched on the sofa while Daniel got to work, watching him study the wooden panels, screws, and brackets. Claire hovered nearby, handing him tools as he needed them. I could see her shoulders relax little by little, relief washing over her as Daniel took over the task. It was fascinating to watch the dynamic unfold. Claire, usually so self-reliant and guarded, allowed herself to lean on someone else's help. Daniel, patient and calm, explained each step of the process to her, even though she clearly trusted him to handle it. As they worked, I chimed in from the sofa. "See? I told you he's the best at this kind of thing. He rebuilt our entire pantry shelf after it collapsed last winter." Claire chuckled. "Well, I'm glad he's on my side now. I might actually get my living room organized." The project took a few hours. By the time Daniel drilled in the final bracket, the once empty wall was now adorned with sturdy, evenly spaced shelves. Claire clapped her hands together in delight. "It looks amazing. I can finally unpack my books and photo frames." She turned to me, her eyes shining with gratitude. "You really didn't have to convince him to come, but I'm so glad you did." I smiled warmly. "That's what friends are for. Besides, Daniel loves this kind of thing. Don't you?" Daniel wiped his hands on a rag, giving us a modest shrug. "It's nice to help out." Over the following weeks, that one act of kindness turned into a series of small projects. Claire's apartment had quirks that needed attention: leaky faucets, a stubborn window that wouldn't shut properly, a light fixture that flickered when it rained. Each time, I'd nudge Daniel, and he'd agree with little resistance. Sometimes I joined him. Other times I watched from the sidelines, sipping tea while Claire offered snacks and tried to make herself useful. What struck me most wasn't just the repairs themselves, but the way Claire's demeanor shifted. She started off hesitant, almost embarrassed to accept help. But slowly, she began to embrace it, not just the practical assistance, but the sense of community and support. One evening, after Daniel had tightened the hinges on her kitchen cabinet, Claire turned to me as we stood at the doorway. "You know, when I first moved here, I felt completely alone. I didn't think anyone would care about the little things that made life harder. But you too, you've made me feel welcome in ways I can't even explain." Her words touched me deeply. I glanced at Daniel, who gave me a quiet, knowing smile. "We're glad you're here, Claire," I said. "Everyone needs a fresh start sometimes." As the months passed, our friendship with Claire grew stronger. We began inviting her over for Sunday dinners, game nights, and neighborhood barbecues. She, in turn, helped us in her own way, watching our dog when we traveled, baking pies for holidays, and bringing laughter into our home with her sharp wit and lighthearted stories. Looking back, I realized how powerful that one decision had been. By convincing my husband to help Claire, I wasn't just solving her household problems. I was helping to build a bond, a small community of trust and care that expanded beyond simple acts of kindness. It reminded me of the truth that sometimes the best thing you can do is encourage others to open their hearts. Watching Daniel patiently help her, watching Claire learn to accept support, and being part of it all made me realize how much beauty there is in shared lives. We hadn't just fixed shelves or windows or cabinets. We had helped repair something much deeper, a sense of belonging. And I would happily watch that happen 1,000 times over.